Okay, we're back with our Amazon Bedrock Agentcore samples, and we are focusing on Agentcore Runtime, and we're creating a playlist going through all the tutorials. So we did the hosting agent, using strands last video. Now we're going to look at hosting MCP server. So let's see how we should approach this. Okay, in this particular folder, there are two notebooks. And what I'm going to do is go through one of them without authentication first. Okay, and let's take a look and see what we have here. We have uh, some Python files that can be used, and we have a requirements file. Looks like it's using MCP, so that's new. And Bodo 3 SDK and Agentcore and the starter toolkit from Agentcore. So we installed everything. We don't have MCP installed, so let's try to install that right now. And let's see what else we have. We have Docker file. We have all of these Python files, which look kind of interesting. And I created this myutils Python file, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later, why I did that. But let's see. Let's go here, and there's a folder with images here as well. Let's take a look at these real quick. Let's see, configure, server, invoke, and launch. So let's see configure. So configuring, the configuration uses Agentcore and streamable HTTP and MCP server, and it uses identity configuration, Agentcore identity configuration, and we configure this into a Docker file, which we can then run in Amazon to run our examples. Now, there's two notebooks here, and one of them uses IAM, and one of them does not. So this is I'm looking at this image saying, okay, which notebook does this apply to? So we're going to have to take a look at the notebooks. Now I'm going to take a look at this image file right here, and I'm going to enlarge it. And this is showing us that basically we have an agent which is talking to the cloud, and we have the cloud and Agentcore Runtime, and we have an MCP server, a streamable HTTP, and we have some tools, add numbers, multiply numbers, greet users. We'll take a look at the notebook and see which one's in our notebook. And now let's see what this looks like. Okay, so now this says the application developer is creating an environment which gets configured into a Docker file. And a Docker file, when we launch it, it goes Amazon code build, builds things, and ECR repository. It gets the Docker file, and it gets launched in Agentcore runtime, and the runtime agent is running, and the runtime endpoint is exposed, and the user has an application which can invoke that. And I think I might have jumped the gun, because this image right here basically is really called the launch, and this is where you're launching things into Agentcore Runtime, but you didn't invoke the endpoint yet. So really, we should have looked at this launch instead of this invoke first. But you could look at those images and you get an idea of what we're talking about. We're configuring things. We're looking at our environment in the cloud, and this is what we're trying to do. And then we launch a Docker file to do just that, and then we invoke it with a user application. So let's just let's just shut this down and these images down, and let's take a look at our file. Now, I'm going to look at this a cell at a time because there's a lot of stuff here to absorb. There's all these cells with all this Python code, and if you look at it cell at a time, you could make some sense out of it. Now, the interesting thing about this is the images that I was just looking at are supposed to be in this documentation, and so let's see the markdown. And I don't see it, so I'm trying to figure out what it is that I'm trying to do here. I shouldn't have pressed any of this. This is like just garbage. I'm gonna delete it. What I want to know is why I'm not seeing the documentation here. Anyway, let's move on. And notice I'm getting a little message here. Stub, Boto 3 stubs isn't compatible with the original package. I'm gonna just install this because, and now it's getting installed, and I don't know why I'm getting that message, but the bottom line is I'm just going to install it and worry about it some other time because I'm just tired of really trying to understand what his problems. And as you know, when I'm looking at this PyCharm IDE with this project loaded in it, I just get the ability to just move forward, and that's what I'm choosing to do. Now, I've chosen to install that. I could look in the bottom of my window and see what's going on, and it's describing what's going on. And once again, I just want it fixed. I just want to move on. So let's just hope that happens. And from my experience, it does happen. And I don't know. I could ignore this here, but I just chose to click install because I want to get the installing out of the way. Okay, now looking at my couple of cells, right? This is one I added because for some reason I get this message. When I install this, it tells me my pip needs to be upgraded, but I've upgraded it many times. So let's just click on that and just see what happens there. It might say it's already installed, it's already upgraded. And this is really interesting because it's telling me it's finding pip 24 and it's installed 26, and meanwhile I've done this plenty of times. I don't know why this keeps happening, but I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, now here was the real install that came in. It's using the package manager. It's pointing to the requirements.txt file. Now notice the requirements for this guy here. We did look at it. It has the MCP in there, so I'm just going to install it. But it's reinstalling. It's reinstalling everything because I got this force reinstall here. I think one of the reasons why that's there is because I could update one of these notebooks and use a new version of a package and update the requirements file and want that to update appropriately, and so I'm using the new package. And notice my my environment here is listing all my libs that I have installed. So it's pointing to my version of Python, which is 3.14, and my site packages are here. So I have some isolation with my package manager there. Okay, so this check mark is there. We have done with this. We do see an error. We're going to ignore it because I don't understand why I'm seeing it all of a sudden. It looks like the open telemetry package, which I'm not instrumenting anything right now, has some incompatibilities. I think the later tutorials wind up using it, so I'm gonna not bother with that. And like I said, I think there's a check marks here, and I'm getting some messages, and it's talking about Nova Act, which I'm not using at the moment. And if I really think about it, it really it's really used in one of these other tutorials down here, the observability. I ran that, and now I'm having this message come up. So I'm not going to worry about it because this tutorial does not use that. I'm just going to continue running this stuff. Now let's see what this thing is doing. Okay, this is importing the runtime from Bedrock Agentcore Starter Toolkit. It's using the Boto 3 session OS system, and it's doing something interesting here, which I want to talk about. What it's trying to do is trying to CD up to the tutorials one directory, and it's trying to use a Python file there. And I was having some issues, even though it was pointing to the right thing. I was just having issues with the Python runtime environment actually running this piece of code. So what I did was I created my own myutils. I cloned it, created my own myutils, and put it in the same directory as I'm looking at, and decided to use that one instead. But keep in mind that the other projects, the other tutorials did work. I was pointing to utils.py, and it was working. Now let's just quickly look at it's right here. So it's above all of the tutorials. So all of these tutorials did use it and didn't have a problem. This tutorial did. So I just wanted to circumvent my problem and create the myutils here, and because it has this setup cognito user pool, which is extremely valuable, and this project uses it. So it doesn't use it right now in this cell, but it does use it later on. Now, this is a very valuable Python code, setup cognito user pool. It sets up the user pool, and it returns the client and the information you need to use in any application. So it's extremely powerful, and I recommend that you take this and treat it as gold, because these things are working, and it's really good news that we could use some of these things. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I did have a check mark, and I got this little dependency warning. I'll find out what that means. And what the way I've been resolving some of these things, I've been just going to my terminal and just installing it there, activating the environment and going there and just installing it. But the bottom line is I could do that down here too. If I look at the terminal, I could install it down here as well. So if I wanted to fix this error, And notice here I'm actually activated the virtual environment for Python. So it's using this environment for Python, and it's showing up in my prompt. So if I install anything here, it's going to go into this .v environment here, which is good news. But I'm so tired of fixing these things, and I don't think it's affecting me at all. But it's always good to fix these things and not get these warnings or whatever. So here it has, I'm also logging the utilities directory. So the utils directory is only created so we could point to the directory where the utils Python script is. And I've decided it wasn't working for me, so I've decided that I'm just going to import it from my local folder and just import the code that I need. But I did this for debugging purposes. I wanted to see what this code was doing and why I couldn't figure out why I wasn't successfully capable of using that Python script. But we should go back to that and try to figure that out. Anyway, I'm going to move on. So now let's look at this. What does this do? Okay, Bodo's session, instantiating a session. The region name is getting the region name, and it's defining a client, a Bodo session client in a region to access the parameter store and the secret manager, and it's getting those clients and it's defining them, and it's defining the tool name, and it's creating this Bedrock Agentcore control client. And okay, so there are two things that these demos use: the Bedrock control, Agentcore control, and the Bedrock Agentcore data. And they do different things. Like control, you could configure something different in your Amazon Agent Runtime. With the data, you could do things with data, like read a data file and do interesting things. So we'll see what this thing does, because we have an Agentcore control client. And let me run this to see. Okay, it ran. Now I just instantiated some objects that I'm going to use, and maybe they're going to be used in the future cells. Now this one here is writing a file to this. It's writing this file. Okay, so let's see, that file is MCP server. It's right here. So far, this notebook seems to be writing its files here, because I ran this before, and all these files will end up getting written here. So that's what's happening. So let me see. First, let me overwrite the file, which I just did. It's overwriting this MCP server file, and let me just look at this to see what it does. Okay, so it imports fast MCP. It instantiates the fast MCP, and we call it MCP. It defines some MCP tools, and there's one: add numbers, multiply numbers, and greet user. And then we run the MPC server using a transport with streamable HTTP. Now, why are we doing this? We didn't do this in the first demo. Well, I want to use my agent, my large language model, and I want to be able to say, okay, the user's asking for the time or the user's asking me to add 2 numbers. So I'm gonna introspect this, and I'm gonna say, well, what tools do we have? And MCP is this protocol that allows large language models and agents to find out information about the tools. So it's like, instead of saying, oh, I need to know an API and I need to call it, and I need to know the request, and I need to know the response, this is using smarts to actually do that for us. And so it looks like at a very higher level, we're just adding 2 numbers. And it's abstracting out all that information that might slow me down in my software development. So the difference between MCP and API is really, MCP is like this wrapper. It gives us some context so the large language model could say, what tools do I have available? I have add numbers, multiply numbers, greet user. Maybe I do have some Google Mail tools. Whatever I have, the large language model and the agent are trying to figure that out and trying to figure out what needs to be invoked. So let's move on. Okay, now we're going to write my MCP client. So this was the server. This is the client, and I'm going to just execute this before I forget. Okay, and usually I should have just deleted these and have them rewritten, but I don't think this tool is letting me do that right now. So let's look at it. This is just dumping this cell to this file. Very convenient. Juniper Notebook does this. This is the command in Juniper Notebook that allows you to dump this file to disk. There it is. There it is. My MCP client right here. Okay, beautiful. Let's find out what it's doing. Why aren't these things being used? They might be used in a later cell, so let's not worry about that. So what are we doing? We're defining a main program. We're using a local MCP, a URL to communicate with. And let's see, we have a read stream and the write stream. We do async with this particular client. We have a client session that uses the read stream and write stream as a session and awaits, initializes the session, and now we can call this session.list tools. Okay, so this is really valuable. This is something that MCP gives you. So we're going to be able to list those tools, and we have a simple example. So just imagine how this gets, and we're just running this. So this is dumped to this file, and we already dumped it to the file. There's a check mark here. So let's run this thing here. Setting up Amazon Cognito user pool. What it's doing is it's using a function that I imported. It's setting up a user pool, and the setup is complete. It gives me the user pool ID, gives me the client ID. And there you go. You got this. You're getting all information: the client, the bearer token, the open ID. This is the URL, the discovery URL. You got the user pool ID, the client ID, and this is extremely valuable. I mean, and it's Python, so usually you'd see something like this in usually you see something like this in CloudFormation, Terraform, whatever, and so let's take a look at we can look at this function here, and let's see what it looks like. Where is it? It's in my utils. Okay, it's using a username and password. It's got some imports here. It's using a username and password, and it sets up the user pool in Python function, and it gives it a name, and create user pool client. You know, it's just, like I said, it's just code that you could reuse, and there's other functions here. Let's not worry about it. But the point is that that this cell did what it needed to do. Okay, now let's move forward and see what else we have here. Okay, let's see what this is. See, I was expecting to see the documentation up here, and I don't know how to get it up there right now because some of the projects show it, some of them do not. So I think we I won't interrupt this demo here. So let's see what this says. Okay, so let's do this. There's required files, MCP server and requirements. For these files, see if the files exist. We instantiate a runtime. We do the auth config with the client ID, the discovery URL we use, and we print configuring Agentcore Runtime. So it's using as the entry point my MCP server Python file. So if you go and look at that, you'll see it's annotated with an entry point. And so we created that up here, right? Where do we do that? We did it up here, and we have the tools. Where's the entry point? Tools. Let's just keep moving forward here. Okay, let's execute this. Okay, so let's see what happened here. This generated a Docker file. It's under tutorials, Agentcore Runtime. It's here. Here it is right here. This is the Docker file it generated. Now, I've ran this before, so it was there before, but this is what it's generated. And it has this .docker ignore file. It has this as the default agent, Bedrock Agentcore configured, and it uses this Bedrock Agentcore YAML file to configure, right? So the configuration is complete. We look at this Docker file, look at this Agentcore YAML file, just see what this thing is doing. But the entry is parsed. This is the server. It's using it's using the West region. All files found. Configuring Agentcore Runtime. Now what we want to do is be able to launch this thing. Okay, so here we have it where here we have the Docker file. This thing got created for us. Oh, here's the open telemetry instrument. This is why we're getting that warning, that error, because we want the Python to be instrumented. And okay, so we will fix that just because we want that looked at. And the Docker file, what it's doing is it gets a container, it makes a directory, it copies the requirement files, it installs it. Yeah, see, the Docker file is using this telemetry. Region, Docker container, run user add, expose these ports, copy the entire project to the container, and then what's going to happen is we're going to launch this thing, right? So once this thing has everything it needs, this thing gets run, and this is the code build code. So it basically defines all the parameters for you. But notice that is created for you, which is amazing. I mean, this is I'm sorry, but I consider this really tedious stuff. But anything that's generated is useful. So let's not worry about that. But what I want to do is go back to the images. Where are we with the images? I think we are at the point where we want to launch. Yeah, we're at the point where we want to launch. So we're on this diagram right here. And we're launching, you know, we're launching the Docker, and we're building it and registering it and running it, right? So we're exposing it at this point. At this point, the runtime agent and runtime endpoint is here. It's accessible after you launch. Okay, so let's see where we are here. We launched it, and now here's launch. Oh, here's we're launching right here. So let's launch this guy. Launch result, Agentcore Runtime launch. Remember, Agentcore Runtime. Let's see. Just point out a little bit of where that came from. Right here. So in Agentcore, we instantiated a runtime. This is where we're going to run our code, right? So keep that in mind, because the session ID, the runtime, we could use multiple of these objects and instances. So let's consider that. Okay, so let's launch. Now this is like I said, I really like this because my Docker file is here, my other file is here, and we're just using Agentcore to run these things, deploy these things. It's just I know it's almost like command line, but it's sort of like Python as well. But it's not like we have to deal much with infrastructure. So let's see what happened here. We're building in the cloud. We use CoBuild, and we launched an MCP server in the Agentcore Runtime. What that did was it set up the execution roles in the ECR repository. It's getting it created the repository, and it identified it with an identifier, and it says now it's available. Getting and creating execution role, hosting this thing, and it has a role name. It's reusing the ECR repository, reusing the execution role. It's telling me what these things are, and then it gives me this starting code build, queued, completed, provisioning, download source, build started, post build, completed, and the agent is created. Observability is enabled. Notice it says it's enabled, but I did get those errors with the incompatibility of some packages, but we should go see if it's enabled. I haven't been on my Amazon account in a while, but anyway, CloudWatch logs are already configured. X-rays probably used for the observability, so that's showing up. Transaction search already configured. Gen AI observability dashboard, it gives me the link. I'm not going to click on it, I'm not logged in. Polling the endpoint, agent endpoint, deployment successful. ECR image, logs available, tail logs, view, etc. Launch completed. So, like I said, you go back to these images, and we did this. We have launched, and our code is running in Agentcore Runtime. So this is really really fascinating. Now let's look at this in Excel. What does it do? Okay, what this is doing is it's getting the parameter store values, the secrets. It's the parameter store has URLs and stuff like that. And the secrets have API keys and stuff like that. So basically, the secrets client is creating a secret. We've named the secret, gave it a description, and we got the string, which is the cognito credentials, and then if there's an exception, we dump out the exception. We always assume that we're not going to get an exception. Now this part of the code goes and gets parameters, and the parameters that are stored here looks like agent ARN. This is, let's take a closer look at this. This is creating the secret. So it's running the code and it's creating things. And here, it's getting ARNs that the agent was created. It's getting the ARN and it's putting it in the parameter store. So this is good. So when we created the Cognito user pool, we got the credentials and everything back the client credential, the JWT, etc. And when we created the agent, we got information, and so we're just putting this information incognito, and we're putting the information in the parameter store, the credential, the secret manager, and the parameter store. Okay, so agent ARN stored, parameter store, configuration stored. Let me run this thing. So we updated incognito credentials in the security manager. We updated the parameter store with agent ARN, and it's giving us some information here. And that cell is completed with that little green check mark. So go down to the next cell. I'm gonna write this file, which is the client, my MCP client. Let's see what this thing is doing. These imports are being ignored for some reason. It's I get the refresh token for the Cognito IDP. There's a refresh token. You could refresh the token if you want. You get a valid token. So this function has a valid, gets a valid token. There's a main. We're getting the session, the region. We're printing it, and then we basically get the parameter from the parameter store. We retrieve the agent that's retrieve the agent ARN from the parameter store. Then here it's retrieving the secret value, the bearer token, the client ID, etc. Let me run this before I forget. And it's just it just wrote that file, right? It didn't do anything, but the code does a lot. Okay, so let's just, I know we took a look at this. Let's just look at it again. So this is my client that's making a remote call, is making a remote call. So let's look at this real quick. This is invoking the app entry point. Now, what is this application using? I know inside the runtime, we're using MCP at this point, and now the application's invoking this, and I claim it's using MCP as well. So let's just see. Do get valid token, main, get the secrets, get the parameters. Bearer tokens are painful to deal with, as simple as they are. Client session, and it's initializing a client session using MCP. Listing available tools. Yeah, let's see where this is used. My MCP client remote. Let's see where this is used. But let's continue with the code. Listing available tools, available MCP tools, successful connected to MCP server, found tools available, error connecting to MPC server, async IO run. Okay, now let's do this. Now here we're running this thing. So let's run this thing. It's interesting because at the moment I'm trying to figure out, is this local on my laptop or is this running remotely, so I have to look at the code carefully to try to detect that. Testing MCP server using this region, retrieve agent ARN, retrieve credentials, connecting to Bedrock, to the Bedrock MCP server, Agentcore, initializing the session, initialized listing available tools. We got adding numbers, multiplying numbers, create users, successfully connected to the MPC server. Now, so I'm losing a little bit track, but let's just continue as we go on. This is dumping a file called invoke MCP tools, and if I look at it, let's run it first. Okay. So what this is doing here, right? It's creating a client session using MCP. It's using a streamable HTTP. Now it's talking to Cognito, right? It's getting refresh access token using refresh token. There's get valid token, and there is to get the bearer token. And so let's look at the main program. It's using the region. It's got a client. It gets the responses. Retrieve agent ARN. Gets the secrets. Gets the token. Now this is the MCP URL. This is interesting because let's see where that came from. And it's doing authorization by passing in the bearer token. Notice, notice you need to authenticate with Cognito to access AWS. So there's an app where we basically what we did was we defined an app with a client ID. Let's take a look at it. Client ID. Here the credentials for Cognito were stored in the security manager. Okay, now we're testing the tools, and we're running this invoke MCP tools Python. Where was I? Let me just make sure I run this again. Okay, so see the issue is I got all these files that are being created, and I'm trying to figure out my launch script launched the Docker container and is running it. So when I'm invoking, I'm assuming I'm local on a client connecting, using Cognito and authenticating and going to talk to the MCP server. But let's verify that. Let's see. Okay, now we're testing. Okay, so what we did was we added two numbers, we multiplied two numbers, added numbers. Greet user Alice. Okay, now this is the cleanup script. And so we tested this. It greeted Alice. Hello, Alice. Nice to meet you. So like I said, these are simple things and simple tools and simple things happening. Let's go to it does get a little confusing in the notebook, like what is happening and where is it happening. So what I'm assuming is, let's see, we configured a Docker. We hosted that in the cloud. The agent is not in the cloud. And the agent is communicating with the cloud. We'll verify that. And we launched the Docker containers running, and we have access. This says runtime agent. So this image looks a little bit different because the agent looks like it's running in the runtime. But let's go, and it probably is because we used MCP to get the tools. So let's just verify. Let's just verify that. The Juniper notebook should have the images in it and tell us everything that's happening and where it's happening. And I'm sure there must be something that is not configured in this notebook that is not showing the images or the text. Let's do a simple example. See, it's not showing it. Let me see something here. All right. If you go into a Google Copilot or you go into Juniper SageMaker, you'll see some of this stuff happens. But if you look at the other projects in the folder, some of them do thorough documentation with showing these images. That is why these images are here. They're being displayed in the notebooks. Okay, so um, I'm going to try to wrap this up, but first, what I want to do is I want to look at the invoke. Let's see, some of these having two notebooks in the same directory is not good because now I got to figure out which one goes with which. This is the one we invoked, right? This one. Now this is using my credentials on my Mac, so it stored the secrets and it's retrieving the secrets. So that's how that's working. And this main is just run. And it's run on my local machine. So this now where's the client here? Okay, so now I'm going to look at there's two of these files too. Let's look at this one here. This was called the remote, and let's see. Okay, this function creates an MCP client transport that uses AWS Signature version 4 to authenticate requests. This is necessary because the standard MCP clients don't natively support AWS IAM authentication. This bridges the gap. So the URL of that gateway, endpoint, service name for the signing, and the region returns a transport instance configured for SIG v4. This is getting all the tools from an MCP client. It doesn't show you all the tools. It might get, a couple of them, 3 of them or so, but you can get all the tools that there could be thousands of tools. So it doesn't. It just wants to deliver what's needed. And so let's see this. So this is the Boto 3 client. It is making a remote call to AWS to get this stuff. Okay, now I'm trying to figure out what is this. This is. Let me close this real quick. Let's just see here what files it's writing. MCP server, my MCP client, my MCP client remote. So Oh my goodness. So it wrote these two. Some of these things are used in this next notebook, and all it does is use IAM um, instead of the Cognito JWT token, and it uses IAM inside of Agentcore probably. So if the agent needs to communicate with something, it needs permissions to do so. But we can look at that next. So it was my MCP client and my remote. So I completely forgot. Let's see. I think this is doing this two ways. It's doing it on the laptop talking to AWS, and it's doing it talking to AWS. So I think there's a difference between these two. Let me see what this is. Yeah, this is just listing tools. So going back to the invoke, it is the application, the client application is running here, and it's talking to the endpoint. You see this here. This here tells me the agent's running on my laptop, and I'm running code, and I'm listing the tools or invoking the tool. It's using Agentcore Runtime. There's an MCP server there, and it's got this streamable HTTP capability, and I can list tools and I can invoke the API. That's basically what's happening. Anyway, let's call it quits for this one, and that's all I really wanted to show you. And as you could see, it's easy to get confused with the files. But the truth of the matter is now, this guy and this guy have sharing these images. But let's just go into this real quick, and let me see. No, it's not showing me the images or the documentation. Okay, anyway, let's call it a day, and let's move on with the other tutorials. Thank you very much.